Good morning, everybody. This is the first time that I've been introduced to any kind of technology of this sort. Had my daughter not put a smiley face above the camera, I don't know what I would do to stay happy. I'm just not used to this. But what I want to share with you is my testimony. I want you to forgive my hoarseness, but I have a little problem sometime when I'm not on oxygen constantly. However, in doing this on YouTube like I want to do it, I don't have to have the oxygen for about 9 or 10 minutes. So that gives me plenty of time to begin today what I'd like to say, and I'd like to do that from the very beginning. I'd have to go back to the year of 1953, August the 12th or 13th. I forget exactly. But I'm with a mother, her daughter, and two other girls that are 12 years old. I'm a month and a half shy of my 13th birthday. We stop at a mom and pop grocery store to get a big hunk and an orange soda pop. Then you could buy it for 15 cents. So they pushed the seat up of the 47 Plymouth where I was in the front seat, and they all jumped out giggling and ran in the store, and the mother got out to pump gas on the old type gas thing that we don't have today with cards, credit cards, etc. You had to get your own gas. If any of you are close to 80, you know what I'm talking about, because I'm close to that myself. But there's a lot of youth. I'm kind of like Joshua. In Joshua chapter 13, verse number 1, he says that he is old and somewhat afflicted, but there is much land to be possessed. So instead of quitting after 42 years in one community, with the exception of 10 months being in another smaller town south of here, I've been in my hometown preaching the gospel since 1977. My wife Deanna and I began Calvary Christian Fellowship on December the 20th, 1981, in an old house just off of Interstate 40 in Shamrock. Today we have a nice facility. My son-in-law and his wife, which is my daughter Jessica, have the ministry now for about a year, and I had to find me something to do, and I found out people were all over YouTube with the right kind of messages, and I felt like I had one, excuse me, and I wanted to share it. And incidentally, let me introduce my daughter Joanna. She's producing all of this, and the picture she's drawn keeps me laughing and smiling, but the subject matter in the future is not so much to smile about, because we'll talk about things that are very eternal, and that's where I feel the Spirit of God is taking me to go. So let's begin in August of 1953. As the girls pushed me up in that seat and jumped out to go into the store, the seat fell back and I fell back in the seat, just kind of laid back in it, and something told me to look out the front right windshield, which I did. And what I saw, I could not understand as a 12-year, nearly 13-year-old boy. I saw a lake of fire, burning, horrible looking, and ever so often it would belch somebody up out of that lake. And thank God they were faceless. They were faceless. All I could see was their body, some clothing that was burned and singed as best as I can remember, and no facial features. But I could hear screams from these people being burped up and belched out of that horrible lake. And it was to come, no, do not come to this place. Have somebody to stop people from coming here. This is horrible. There is wailing and gnashing of teeth and weeping and sorrow and remorse and guilt like you've never known. That lasted for about 2-3 minutes. And then by that time the girls were getting back in, and that vision, as I call it, dissipated, and I just thought what I could think of it. And being only nearly 13, I had to mull it over in my mind just what had happened. I think at that instant, God had called me to preach the gospel, to stop people from coming to this horrible place. And so that's what I've attempted to do for these last 42 years. However, there were many years that the devil stole from my life, and I don't wish to go into all of that. I just wish to tell you that there was a call. I obeyed it until I was about 15, the best I could. And then things began to take hold of my life. There was a certain influence that came along that brought much discontent and certain other things into my life, and I began to look for other things. But before that, let me go back to the same August of 53. Right after that vision, we had a 2-week revival at the old First Methodist Church in Shamrock. A young man who had abused me for a number of years, he was an upperclassman, and he'd gotten born again, he'd gotten converted, as the Methodists call it, in this revival. My mother told me that she and I were going to that revival. I was very much into the Methodist Church, Sunday school, vacation Bible school. I was into everything. I had nobody but my mother. My dad wasn't. My brother would go sometime. But I was there constantly as much as I could, and I always wanted to lead the Sunday night singing, which they would let me do occasionally. And I was thrilled to be part of what I considered the work of God. Little did I know what would transpire in the next 60 some odd years. And how thankful I am that it did transpire, because it changed my life for eternity. And I pray that this recording, that what I'm going to tell you on YouTube over the next few times that I'm on, by the leading of the Spirit of God, that it will help change your life, and you will realize that these issues are eternal. They are eternal. This is not a game. This is not a plaything. Church is not a fun time. This is serious business, and if we do not pay attention to it, we could find ourselves lost in that lake of fire forever and forever. At that revival, the young man who had abused me came over and said, "Joe, I have become a Christian. I went down forward last night to the altar, and I became a Christian. Would you like to become a Christian?" I said, "I would." And so he led me to the altar with my mother, and I accepted Jesus Christ, and I was converted, as my mother told me on the way home, as I asked her about the newness in my heart, the freshness of the sky, the beauty of the lights, the air. Everything was so different. I knew my heart had been changed, and changed it was for the next 2 to 3 years. And then the influences began to come along, and I listened to other people, and I listened to other matters, and I did not keep my commitment to the Lord as I had made it at that altar that night. Yet after 22 years of a life filled with sin, and I don't have to go into any of it, some I may later, I don't know. All I know is there was one morning at 10 minutes till 2 in Dallas, Texas in 1976. And had I not been converted in 1953, I was truly born again on the floor of a bait house in Dallas, Texas in the winter of 1976. I was delivered from alcohol. I was delivered from everything. My language changed immediately, and I knew that I was instantly saved. And I believe that I will stop there for today and ask you to listen again if you feel led of the Lord. There's a lot to this story, and there's a lot to His story. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Have a good day.